Hello, I'm Ethan Chazin, a New York-based organization development coach, and today's training session is on utilizing employee work products, or what we refer to as the 6 boxes model, to ensure successful people development or training and development initiatives in your organization. So without further ado, let's dive right in to today's training. So the 6 boxes model, I want to give a hat tip to Dr. Carl Binder, who originated this framework for better understanding the intersection between your individuals and your organization's environment with respect to training and development. Dr. Binder took the work of Tom Gilbert in his behavioral engineering model and created this 6 boxes approach. So we'll walk across from top to bottom the 6 boxes, and then we'll go into a little bit more deep dive in terms of training and development specific program initiatives. So the first top line are the 3 boxes that comprise the external or environmental considerations in your organization when it comes to people development initiatives for your 2024 training and development. So the first box, reading left to right, is expectations and feedback. And what that encompasses is setting a full set of understanding with your individuals in your organization at all 3 levels: senior leadership, management, and frontline staff, as well as across the organization in all your functions: HR, marketing, sales, customer care, finance, etc., setting expectations for what their training and development are. And typically, it works best to frame these conversations with your employees around their career and professional development. The other aspect of expectations and feedback is giving the people in your organization constant, consistent feedback in real time that is specific, timely, and measurable. The second box, going left to right, is tools and resources. And so the tools encompass whether it's real-time, class-based, or individual training. It can be virtual. It can be training on demand, which is what we call micro-learning, which is 10 to 15 minutes specific training sessions on specific skill sets, as well as all the requisite resources that you need to ensure your people have to set them up for success. The third box, going left to right, is consequences and incentives. What is each individual's motivation for undergoing training and development? What happens as a result of the training? And what I mean by what happens is, how do you take the training that the people go through in your organization and apply it to their work? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So those are the 3 boxes across the top that in Dr. Binder's model constitute the environmental or organizational considerations. Those are those top line 3 boxes. The bottom 3 boxes are allocated or dedicated to the individuals in your organization. And so that's important to focus, because we usually think only of the box on the left at the bottom, the individual skills and knowledge that are needed. But you'll see from the 6 box model that there's a whole bunch of other individual and organizational considerations. So when it comes to the individual, the bottom left, first box, skills and knowledge. What are the skills, knowledge, training, certifications, education, background, prior work experience, cultural diversity, all the things that that individual does possess? And then what are the roles and responsibilities that are needed now and in the future for ongoing success in their current role and any roles that they take on in the future? And they're knowledge-based. And so whether it's training in real time, individual, group-based, whether it's LMS, learning management systems, where you have an archive of dedicated online training, skills and knowledge encompass that first of 3 boxes that are applicable to the individual in Carl Binder's 6 boxes model. The second box that applies to the individual is selection and assignment. How do you select individuals in your organization to undertake training? So there may be, remember, 2 types of skills or training that is needed: functional or technical skills that are required to do a specific task, as well as skills that are soft skills, professional development skills, leadership, effective communication, conflict resolution, leadership. So those softer skills that are needed for less on the job and more career and professional development for future roles. So that's how you think about selection and assignment. How do you formally select people and assign them for training and development opportunities? So that's the second box that maps to individual. development. The third box is motives and preferences. What are the individual's motives for being successful in the training? What are their preferences? So the training, in order to be effective, really needs to be discussed with the employee rather than just being told, you need to go to diversity training or safety, OSHA training, or you need to. No, no, no. Those days are long gone. The motives and preferences are having constant conversations with your people around what they need and want to develop in their current opportunities and where they're looking in terms of their future growth. So those are the 6 boxes framework. 3 are environmental and 3 are individual. Let's move on. So I want to talk now about, for the rest of this training session, the application of this into your people's training and development initiative. So typically what happens is an organization, I've seen it in my 15 years of coaching and consulting, they'll start the wrong way. They'll put the cart before the horse. They'll say, we need training on a specific skill for a specific group of people. So whether it's effective listening for customer care employees or upsell opportunities or prospecting training for sales, that actually is what we call in the trade ass backwards. Instead, what you want to think of is you want to think about next year's goals in terms of, at the highest level, your business goals for the year. Then the middle level is your departmental or a cross-functional area goals that map up to your business goals. And then the third level down, your people goals, should be comprised and dedicated to achieving their team departmental goals, which again will be successfully achieving organization goals at the top line. So work backwards. Your training and development, your people initiatives are a logical progression or a logical outcome of working from your desired business goals, your short and long term. When I talk about when I'm doing consulting and I do these upfront assessments with my clients, and that's what we're really talking about, is assessments to gauge where the need is for people development initiatives. We work backwards from business results. And so what the business results are in totality is they may be measurable in terms of top line revenue generation, new client acquisition, client renewal, more sales per client. And then they may be cost containment, bottom line, reducing costs, being more efficient, being optimizing operational efficiency. We may talk about things that are generic like quality, however you and your organization define what you do from a quality construct. We may often in my client engagement talk to my clients about customer satisfaction. We work backwards from the voice of the customer. Maybe there's state or federal regulations that we need to have employees be in compliance with. Safety, legal, regulatory. That's a consideration. And then we talked about the big ticket item is business continuity risk management, especially in a post-COVID, post-global pandemic world where we and our clients and vendors and suppliers are connected globally. We want to talk about mitigating or reducing risk. So those are the kinds of business results that we're working backwards from at the high level, your organization's highest level, that trickle down to the next 2 levels, which are your leadership team down to management, and then all the way down to your client-facing staff. Here's where we get to the heart of everything that I've done for the past nearly 15 years in my coaching and consulting practice and training and development, and it's employee work outputs. They are the employees' behaviors or actions that lead to products being produced. And you work that backwards from what do you want your business to accomplish? And then you ask your people, you have conversations with your people about what do they need to be able to do that will be measured for success as a direct result of the training. And I will tell you right now, far too often, organizations don't give much of any thought about the return on their people development initiatives. And that's what I try to educate and coach my clients to do, is to think about an employee ROI, the return on your training and development and your people investment strategies. You want to connect employee behaviors to business results. What do you want your people to be able to do more effectively, do more efficiently? What do you want them to produce? Here it comes, as a direct result of attending training. programs. What do they need and want to do as a result of the training that's imminently invaluable to your organization as a result of attending the training, and then, just as importantly, taking what they learned as outcomes from the training that they attended and applying that in their roles. So what are work outputs? And it's amazing, as obvious as you may think this is, and you may even be offended at its simplicity, but many organizations don't define this for their people's roles and responsibilities and in job descriptions, but it needs to have effective employee ROI and measuring the performance and productivity of your employees in 2024. So what are work outputs? So they're nouns, okay? They're things that are countable. They're valuable to the organization. And again, they can be measured. Because how else are you going to gauge the efficacy, the positive impact of your training, unless you're able to measure the before training with the after? You do it by looking at work outputs. There are things like deliverables that you've tasked your people with achieving. They're transactions. Maybe they're milestones, whether it's a new product launch, opening a new location, but they're milestones. They have start and end dates. Maybe it's decisions that your employees are tasked with making on a regular, ongoing basis. Progress indicators like percent revenue achieved during a fundraising initiative that may be a quarterly or a year-long fundraising initiative. Relationships. We often fail to realize that people who have relationships with our clients, prospects, vendors, contractors, partners, suppliers, the media, regulatory agencies, those relationships are work outputs, believe it or not. And so we want to figure out a way to measure using metrics, numbers, relationships. The other piece of what we need to measure as work outputs or products of our employees' performance are changes that they implement, process improvements. In my consulting practice, I work with clients to create idea generation programs, specifically to achieve this work output, which are performance and productivity improvements to your top line, the revenue generation component, or the bottom line, which is, reducing cost, operational efficiency. So those are some of the work outputs that we identify as needing to be stated. So now we get to training. Okay, we've talked about two prerequisite steps. One is defining your business organizational goals at the high level and then at subsequent levels. We then talked about working backwards in your assessment for having conversations with your employees about what do they want and need for their ongoing development. So now, when we're ready to start thinking about training or finalize next year's training budget with its associated training plan, we need to address some false narratives or false thinking that are still tied to training and development. Just because we make or have training available to our people does not necessarily mean that after they attend the training, that they're going to now modify or adapt their behavior to achieve different work outputs or achieve higher levels of performance and productivity. They have to be able to take that training back with them day in, day out afterwards. So what I train my clients to do is not only do we, in our upfront needs assessment stage, identify what is the training, the process, the topics, the timeframes. We talk about what is going to happen afterwards to ensure that they successfully incorporate their training into their new workflow processes. Other considerations, which often my clients don't navigate before they make training mandatory or strongly suggested. They don't think through how that training, that acquisition of new skills, new experience, new expertise, how is that going to be folded into the individual's performance reviews, their appraisals, the feedback that they receive? How are you going to have a dialogue to ensure successful incorporation of the training into their day in, day out workflow processes? This is all about being able to measure and positively impact three things: your employees' performance and their productivity, which has a direct straight line through cause and effect to your organization's ultimate profitability. So why do we measure their outcomes, their outputs, their performance? It's a way of us keeping score with how we're doing as an organization. Listen very carefully to these words, how we're doing in our commitment to our people. That's the 21st century way of thinking about employees. The old way is, whip, get the horse to pull the cart. Now it's incentivizing people by measuring their increase in performance and productivity for potential promotions, enrolling them in a coaching or mentorship program, allowing them to take on new roles and responsibilities, delegating new work to them, giving them from a frontline staff to a leadership role. So this is how we do that. We keep score. But it's not easy. It's not always easy. Why isn't it easy? Because many organizations have almost no idea, none, at least in my 15 years of coaching and consulting, they have no idea how the training and development, their people development initiatives fit into their strategic planning and their operational success. That third piece, the people, is often an afterthought. It's just moving deck chairs on the Titanic. So when we talk about measuring people's performance, we're talking about, again, what are the work outputs? We want to use things that have numbers that we can measure the before and the after training as a spike in productivity and performance. We want to measure that. We want to be able to use, whether it's number of reports, reduced hours working on a process improvement strategy, revenue generated during a fundraising initiative, number of client calls, inbound calls successfully managed. We want to use those numbers that are countable. Remember, I said earlier, they're nouns. And ultimately, it's all about taking subjectivity out of your people assessment initiatives. It's making it objectively based on results and performance. So here's how we think about this model called work outputs. And I do this with a lot of my clients. I'm just going to walk through it at a very high level. Your work outputs, as I mentioned previously on the left-hand column, are measurable things. They're new ideas to generate revenue or reduce costs. They're achieving milestones, making decisions, customer inquiries or customer relationship cultivation, process improvements, transactions. They're things that can and must be measured. What you want to do as you rethink every single person in your organization, top to bottom, across, full-time employees, part-time, contract, it doesn't matter. We want to rethink the people in your organization's relationship with performance and productivity. So we want to think about the work outputs, the things that are measurable, what they produce from their actions and behaviors. We then want to think about what is a really good criteria for establishing really effective, measurable work outputs. What is it going to take that employee to perform that task? Behaviors, actions. It's not just getting the work done, it's how they get the work done. That really should be factored into your future training and development, your people development initiatives in order to maximize your employee ROI. And then what are the behaviors that influence people's ability to achieve or not achieve? And I'll give you a very specific example. As you know, I saw it during COVID, and I've seen it cyclical over the years. Organizations go through downsizing. For whatever the excuse or socioeconomic consideration, they, in a cyclical basis, go through downsizing. Well, there's an impact to downsizing, not just to the people who leave, but there's an impact to the people who stay, often in terms of workflow that they're inheriting from their peers who were removed from the organization, with very little consideration for the impact on the individual. So how are they going to modify their behaviors to get that additional workflow done? And that needs to be incorporated when you're thinking about the totality of your people's performance and productivity. This is an organizational consideration. So I hope you found today's training session to be helpful. I want to leave you with a mindset as we're heading into 2024. Your people are your most valuable and only lasting competitive advantage. Your human capital, it's your people, more than your strategic considerations, more than your operational considerations. It's your people that will determine your ability to remain competitive, offer a tremendous organizational, reputational brand, and achieve your short and long-term objectives. So having said that, a lasting thought is, if I were to ask you, with regard to your payroll or your headcount in any organization, it's their largest cost. How do you get from thinking about your people as a cost, from cost before, to in the future, your people as an investment strategy? How much of your investment in your people, your payroll, your cost, are you getting a return on your investment on? Please be sure to check out the link to go to my YouTube channel, where I do often provide 1-minute short videos on some of these best practices and tips for maximizing your people's performance, productivity, and profitability. Thank you so much for your time today.